All right, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rachaha Kwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, push to this truth and sincerity, while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And this is going to be a video, a spiritual video, if you will. As you can see within the video on the screen, this is a video of trees that I have the Spirit got on me to record these trees, because, well, you see, and I'm not bragging, I'm not boasting about myself, but I'm only bringing out this edification for educational purposes only. When I walk around, I tend to walk around with a spiritual mindset. So I don't see trees the way that normal people see trees. When I see trees, I think of people. I think of organizations. When I see trees, I think of congregations. I think of different types of sects, S-E-C-T-S. I think of different types of groups out there, such as IUIC, ISUPK, GOCC, HOI, which is an acronym for the House of Israel, HOJ, House of Jacob, HODC, House of David Church, FOPI, for Our People's Evolution, you know, the 14th Street Israelites. You know, we can't forget about Baloo. Okay, the big chubby nigga who mocked the Mark of the Beast by putting a potato chip on his hand and saying that he had the chip. We can't forget about him. Okay, the bear that likes to hibernate in the wintertime because it gets so cold outside that it hurts his fingernails and the pages stick together. You know, we can't forget about him. Okay, we you know, and there's many other. I don't need to list them all. You know who they are. But you see, when I see trees, I don't see trees as regular people. A regular person would look at a tree and they'd be like, oh, you know, beautiful creation. And don't get me wrong, trees are a beautiful creation, you know. The Lord made trees to align with our spirit, our DNA, our bodies. But there's also a spiritual meaning behind trees, you see. And when you read the Holy Scriptures, people are oftentimes referred to as trees, where their fruit would be their works, their belief, their philosophies, their ideas. That will be their fruits. You know, their fruits can also be the results of their works. The results of the works of their own hands, the results of their actions, which is based or backed by the foundation of what they believe in, their philosophies and ideas. So we understand that when Eve ate of the fruit of the trees in the midst of the garden, we understand that she learned of the ways of wickedness, which was done by the hands, the ways of wickedness, which were the results of the actions that were done by the hands of these other nations. And not only did she get involved into the ways of wickedness, the ways of nastiness, the way of sin, she also got her husband involved. Okay. And he got caught up into the wicked fruits, the wicked deeds that the other nations were practicing into. So they learned of the wickedness of these other nations. They learned of the wicked philosophies and the wicked ideologies and the wicked rituals, and they learned of the wicked beliefs of these other nations, which was pretty much Adam and Eve, in a nutshell, eating of those forbidden fruits of the trees that were in the midst of the gardens, which we know the trees to be the people. So the people of the other nations. So, Yahushua saw a fig tree in the way while he was walking, right? And he saw no fruit thereon. Now, the fruit fruit on the tree do not necessarily have to be something edible. The fruits of a tree can be something like leaves. Leaves grow on a tree, right? During the springtime, you oftentimes see flowers that blossom on trees. You see particular roses that blossom on trees. You see particular plants that blossom on trees. All these will be the fruit of the tree. The end result of the tree after receiving rain, sunlight, warmth. Okay. So Yahushua saw a fig tree with no fruit thereon. In other words, Yahushua encountered a tree that had no leaves on it. It had no flowers on it. It had no plants on it. It had nothing blooming on it. And you know what he did? He cursed that fig tree. And the fig tree withered away. Because what good is a tree without any leaves on it? I speak like if it's like, because, the wintertime, okay, yeah, everything dies in the wintertime. But in the summertime, when it's hot outside, you might need some shade because you're getting cooked by the sun, you're sweating. You might have just finished playing basketball, throwing the football, playing soccer, kickball, whatever, baseball, volleyball. You're probably throwing a frisbee outside. Getting wild, flipping in the grass and shit. Playing football. So, you're hot, you're sweaty. Your friends, your family probably bought a cooler full of Gatorades and all that shit. But that's not enough. You want to sit somewhere that's going to give you shade from the sun while you enjoy the warm wind blowing on you. Because, I mean, because, you know, I'll admit, you know, when you're hot and sweaty outside, there's nothing like some cool wind blowing on you. Because when you're hot and you're sweaty, it makes the wind feel that much more good. It makes it feel that much more appreciated. So, you know, you want to sit underneath a tree where you can be shielded from the sun and enjoy the warm wind blowing on you. But this park that you are at has trees, but it ain't got no fruit on it. So what good is a tree without any leaves on it? And ultimately, I'm not just talking about just any old tree, because you have evergreen trees that basically all year round, they're still evergreen. They still got its fruit on it. It's leaves and such. It's scent. Okay. So what I'm alluding to is a tree that cannot grow any leaves on it. What good is a tree that cannot grow any leaves, that cannot grow any flowers or plants, or even, you know, fruit? Even though a tree don't need to grow actual edible fruit on it, like apples and oranges and grapes and all that stuff, in order to have its uses, because the whole purpose of a tree is to provide oxygen into the air, provide shade, be a place of home and comfort to birds to set up nests in. And there's particular creatures that actually feed off of leaves from trees. So again, what good is a tree that cannot grow any leaves, that cannot grow any flowers, petals, well, petals, like flower petals, because some trees can actually grow flower petals. You know, what good is a tree that cannot grow like berries? And what good is a tree that cannot grow actual edible fruit? A tree that grows absolutely nothing. What good is a tree like that? A tree like that is pretty much good for nothing. Well, I wouldn't say good for nothing, because even a tree that cannot grow any fruit has its uses, right? You can chop it down and you can make campfire wood out of it. You know, you can chop it down and use it to start a fire to stay warm in the cold, right? Because that's pretty much all any of the other uses that a tree has. So a tree like that would be a tree that is considered dead. A dead tree, in other words, because the dead does not produce life. I mean, just like it's the same concept with dead bodies. When a person dies, you know, and a person might get their loved ones cremated, they take their bodies and throw it in a furnace, and you know, pretty much the corpse will be in the fire until it is completely ashes. Okay, so you could put trees in that same concept. A tree that cannot grow any leaves or fruit on it, for that fact of a matter, is pretty much chopped down, and it is used as a campfire. It can be used to, you know, if you had a house with a chimney in it, you could use those same tree logs to start a fire inside your house, where the smoke would go up through the chimney, but the fire would provide heat to pretty much your whole household. which in my opinion, these were the best type of houses, because these type of houses did not depend on a electrical furnace, which you can clearly see how over the decades, these so-called elites have been working towards their new world order. Because going back even 100 years ago, there used to be houses that had chimneys to them for a reason. And the chimneys were used to release the smoke up and up onto basically outside the house. The chimneys were used to release the smoke from out of the house, as the fire below the chimney provided heat to the house. But we understand why they replaced old-fashioned chimneys with electrical furnaces. This was to charge people money to stay warm in the winter time. Because prior to that, there was no such thing as paying bills for heat just to stay warm in the wintertime. That was practically free, because you just use the wood from trees that you chop down to warm up your house via a old-fashioned chimney. But not to get off topic, okay, a tree that cannot bear fruit, pretty much at that point it only has one use, and that's to be chopped down and to be used as fire. Or you could also use a tree of the sorts to you can use it to like maybe build a cabin, a house, or whatever. You can also use it in that regard. But you see, when I see trees like this, trees that have absolutely no fruit on it, I think of these other Israelite groups where the majority of the people in their congregation, they're learning very, very little about the Lord. For one, they don't know the Heavenly Father's name, His true name. You got some congregations, they'll say the name of the Heavenly Father, but they won't acknowledge the Son. Like there was this one YouTube channel that I seen on my page called I think the name of the YouTube channel was called Yahweh's House, or House of Yahweh. And I checked out their video, and one thing I noticed was they would say Yahweh, but they would call Yahweh Jesus Christ. And then on top of that, they were not wearing Hebrew Israelite garments when teaching out on the highways and hedges. Okay, they were pretty much coming in that same fashion as IUIC, where they would stand out on the street corners wearing t-shirts with fringes on them, which is not scriptural, because a t-shirt or a shirt is pretty much an undergarment. A shirt is a undergarment. It's what you wear underneath your Hebrew Israelite garment, which is the long piece that comes down to where your feet is, from the front and from the back, obviously. So I knew those guys weren't right. I got away from those guys real fast. Okay, No, I got away from those guys real quick. But you see, in this regard, right? In this case, the tree would represent these different Israelite groups. IUIC, that's a tree. ISUPK, that's a tree. GOCC, that's a tree. You know, HOI, that's a tree. HODC, that's a tree. FOPI, that's a tree. 14th Street Israelites, that's a tree. But that's pretty much, that would 14th Street Israelites would pretty much be one of those fig trees that Yahushua cursed and it withered away, because you don't even hear about 14th Street Israelites anymore. You know, this dude dude's YouTube channel used to be called Hard Rock Truth. Okay, I believe his name was Bakwash. And here it is. Your YouTube channel is Hard Rock Truth, but you was not really about that life. You was not really about the Hard Rock Truth, which is Yahushua. Because who's the rock of the Holy Scriptures? Yahushua. That is our foundation. That this whole ministry of ours, as Apostle Gabar would, as Elder Apostle Gabar would say, is built around. It is built upon. So here it is. Your YouTube channel used to be called Hard Rock Truth. What happened? Why'd you stop teaching? Because a part of the Hard Rock Truth is to continually go out on the highways and hedges and warn the Lord's people and teach and prophesy and edify. That's all a part of the Hard Rock Truth. So Bakwash, ultimately, that dude was a straight up hypocrite. Okay, he was a straight up pretender, and then he had effeminate traits about him, man. Okay, this nigga used to listen to the house music, in which, you know, brothers used to make fun of him for that. Like bro, who the fuck listens to house music? But anyways, I mean, we know who do, but you know, you called yourself the Hard Rock Truth. You know, a rock is also tied to endurance. You were supposed to endure in this ministry, and you didn't. But the 14th Street Israelites, and there's other Israelite groups who pretty much became as a fig tree that Yahushua cursed and it withered away. 14th Street Israelites who used to come up heavily against us here at Great Millstone. You know, especially Bakwash. He was one of those dudes that used to come up against us heavily because we used to get on his ass about him not going out in the wintertime and teaching. So, you know, he used to make videos, you know, scoffing at us, trying to be funny, cracking jokes. Dude was corny as hell sometimes too. You know, and ultimately, after years don't pass by, what happened? This dude withered away. Okay, he withered away because he was a fig tree that ultimately had no fruit. Now, you look at some of these trees, right? Sometimes you'll see a tree, it would appear that it has no fruit on it, right? It would appear to have no leaves on it. But then, after doing some diligent searching, you realize that there is a scarce, and I mean a scarce or scant few of leaves on the trees. Like you might spot like because a tree is generally supposed to be filled with thousands of leaves on it, depending on how big the tree is. Some trees have hundreds of thousands of leaves on it. But you look at a tree like this, right? And sometimes you'll see a tree like this and it would appear to have no leaves on it, no flowers, nothing, right? Nothing. But if you look real closely, you'll see a scarce or a scant few of leaves on the tree. And you might see like 2 or 3 of them. You might even see like maybe 10 of them, even though they're all in completely different areas of the trees. And these very few leaves, these very scant or very scarce few leaves on that tree could be members that are of the elect. Okay? These could be members, these could be potential members of the elect, which is why we always hear our elders and apostles, especially Apostle Tahar, say that, you know, he believes that there are members that are of the elect amongst these other Israelite groups out there. There could very well be members of the elect that are within IUIC right now. There could very well be members of the elect that are in ISUPK and various of these other Israelite groups that are going off, perverting the doctrine, and pretty much have sold out to the enemy for uncertain riches and filthy lucre's sake. But there's going to come a time and point where the Lord is going to put the spirit, if they're of the elect, right? The Lord is going to put the spirit on them to pretty much start questioning the doctrine that these other Israelite groups are teaching. And it's going to lead to them getting up and leaving those false Israelite congregations, realizing that they are the synagogue of Satan, according to Revelation 2:9. And then they're going to end up coming to us, Great Millstone, because they're going to start, because they are going to begin to see who actually have the truth and who don't. Like it tells you in Malachi, the 3rd chapter, then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, the Heavenly Father, and him that serveth him not. So that time is approaching. So, you know, when I see trees like this, I think of these different Israelite groups, such as IUIC. I think of these different Israelite groups, such as ISUPK, GOCC, HOI, FOPI. You know, HOJ, the House of Jacob. I think of these different Israelite groups who basically have no fruit in their congregation. Because IUIC, they might have a lot of members in their congregation, But if your members are dead, spiritually dead, like it tells you in Proverbs, he that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead, right? If your members in your congregation are in a dead state of mind, what would that make them? That would pretty much make them as the brown leaves that fall off the tree. Your leaves are all over the ground, waiting to be stepped on and crushed into pieces, because that's what happens to a brown leaf that have lost its water, its moisture. It's lost its nutritional support, which is the tree, because the tree is the one that's supposed to provide all of its nutrients and minerals to the leaves in order to keep the leaf green, vibrant, healthy. But if the tree is no longer providing those type of essential things to the leaf, what happens? The leaf falleth from off the tree, and eventually it loses its water, its moisture, its nutrients, its minerals, and it turns brown. And at that point, the leaf is no longer flexible, it's no longer green, it is brown. And once the leaf turns brown, what happens when you step on it? It crumbles into pieces. And that's pretty much the vast majority of the congregation within IUIC and these different Israelite groups. The vast majority of the people in their congregation are no more than the brown leaves that fell off the tree. Okay, they are the brown leaves that fell off the tree because the tree, which is the organization, was not providing the leaves with the necessary water and nutrients and minerals, which is the 100% truth of the Holy Scriptures, in order to keep those leaves alive. But I'll say before, and I'll say it again, you'll see some trees from a far distance, they would appear to have no leaves on them. But then when you observe and give diligence very carefully, you'll see that there are a very scarce or a very scant few of leaves left on the tree. And it could be like 5 leaves or 10 leaves. And these leaves could very well be of the elect. Now, when I see a tree that is full of leaves, a tree that is full of flowers, roses, a tree that's full of plants, which will be the fruit of the tree, I think of great millstone and like-minded brothers who follow us, who follow the teachings of great millstone. I think of the 1/3. When I see an evergreen tree, I think of great millstone and like-minded brothers who follow the teachings of great millstone. And this type of mindset towards trees, when I look at trees, I not only apply it to trees, I apply it to grass. I apply it to sidewalks. If I see a sidewalk with a crack in it, I see that as a person in the ministry. They have some form of the truth, but they just don't got it. Like, they might teach that they're Hebrew Israelites. They might teach you to keep the laws, but they're lined up. You know, they still think that the Sabbath is always Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. These type of beliefs would be the crack in the sidewalk.
Packard Road. Walk sign on Packard.
Okay. Now, if I see a sidewalk that is completely smooth, no cracks in it, perfectly shaped, hewed out, completely smooth, a sidewalk with no, you know, pretty much a sidewalk with no holes or cracks in it. If I see a sidewalk that's completely smooth, perfectly hewn out, I see that as a potential member of the elect. You know? Because we know that the elect are without fault. The elect are without fault before the throne of the Heavenly Father. Okay? You see, when it comes to this ministry, there is no corrupt communications. There is no deception. There is no guile. There is no deceit that comes out of the mouth of the elect when it comes to teaching the doctrine and living it. See? Whenever I see grass that is green, well kept, I think of the elect. You know? But now if I see brown grass that is withering, you know, if I see brown grass, I think of those who was once in the ministry, but then, you know, they became corrupted by false teachings because ultimately they were not of the elect, right? Because we know the Holy Scriptures tell you that the elect are not going to be deceived by these different teachings amongst these other Israelite groups. The elect is not going to be deceived. They're not going to be misled into thinking otherwise of the doctrine. But they're going to keep their belief firm in what they believe. Okay? As it is written, continue thou the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of. So the elect are going to go through the straight gate. So you see, I don't see things as normal people see them. There's a lot of things that I see through my spiritual eyes. There's a lot of things I see through my spiritual eyes. There's a lot of things that I see through my spiritual eyes. And the way that I look at trees is one of them. The ways that I look at grass, the way I look at sidewalks, the way that I look at streets, vehicles. It's not the same as how normal people see them. You know, when I see a stop sign, for an example, right? I think of a prophet, because the word prophet, P-R-O, literally means before. And then you got fasi or feset. No, not feset. You have prophet, right? The word prophet, when you break it down, P-R-O, which means before. And then you got fet, P-H-E-T, which means to say. You got prophecy, P-R-O, which means before. And then you got fasi, which means to say. So the word prophet or prophecy literally means to say before. So when you see, and it don't have to be a stop sign. It could be a sign on the edge of the road, giving you a warning of something before you continue down that particular street. So if you see a stop sign, that's pretty much a warning telling you to stop before you get to the end of the road. Just like how the prophets back in the ancient world, right? When they used to go to Israel, they used to warn Israel to stop sinning and to turn from their iniquities before the Heavenly Father brought calamities on them by raising up other nations to attack Israel and ultimately subdue them and put them in captivity. So back in the ancient world, the Lord's prophets often served as a warning. So I see that same concept when I see street signs. I think of prophets. When you see a street sign where it says the speed limit is 35, that's a warning telling you to slow down or to speed it up a bit so that your speed limit can literally match 35 miles per hour. But I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. With that, I'm going to say shalom. Is on to the next one.